Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we're going to be looking at the 4 weapons available in this event, because there is a crate that you can claim with your collectible items in the black market, and it does have a choice of one of these 4 weapons. I'm going to be going over each of them individually and just showing you how they work in terms of gameplay, and also giving you an idea of the sort of characters they would be viable on. I am of course talking about this crate here in the black market. This is going to cost the most tires. The amount of tires you get is based on your performance in terms of your final positioning in the SR tournaments. The easy one only gives 50 for first place, so the likeliness of you getting this is quite small. You'll most likely have to buy tires to get this, but this does seem like one of the best rewards, and if you were to get your hands on 250 tires and you were to get this crate, I'd want you to get the best weapon for you. So I'm trying to get you as informed as possible from my own personal opinion on these 4 weapons. We'll go through the 4 weapons from top left to bottom right. So the first weapon is Ryan's blunderbuss. It has got a 30% defense bonus as the main stat, 15% HP, focus stun. When being attacked, a better chance to stun the enemy and get focus for 2 turns. At the start of every battle and every turn, apply a 10% defense up to all allies for 1 turn. This weapon as it stands is actually pretty decent, because the 3rd slot and the 4th slot both work together on defense teams, and so does the 1st slot. So realistically you could get a huge AP on attack and 40% defense and not have too much of a problem here. This would work on a fairly defensive character already. I don't think it would work on someone like Pete, just because he needs a lot of stats rather than anything else, although this would give him an extra defense boost otherwise. Now if you fully upgrade the weapon, you can make it look like this, and the best thing about this of course is you can keep resetting it until you make it perfect. That's what I did. I had to reset it quite a few times to make sure I got it to perfect. Huge bonus AP on attack and 40% defense. You could potentially make it a stat weapon where it's got HP and defense instead, and then if let's say an alert shield came out in the future, this would be a decent weapon for an alert shield. There aren't too many 4th slot upgrades that are good for shields for alert characters. This would be pretty ideal, to be honest. So we'll do a friendly duel, and you can see Pete here has got the 10% defense bonus from the 4th slot instantly, and this is going to stop the first set of attacks. This is actually pretty good. The other one that you can get, which is team player for alert characters, is the best buff you can get. Depends on how many alert characters you've got in the team, and then they give out alert defense buffs. However, that happens at the end of the first turn, so that first turn damage, which can be extremely high on basic attacks from Prias, you know, every single tough character, basically tough attacking characters are very strong, that isn't going to do much up against it, but this will. So having a combination between 2 of them can actually work. We'll attack with 4 characters just to show you, and as you can see, one of my characters must have resisted the stun, but Pete did get the focus regardless. As you can see, he has got focus. This would mean that he cannot get confused and cannot get taunted in this time. If I confuse or taunt him, he'll still be able to active, he'll still be able to rush, he'll still be able to do basic attacks. He'll also be able to bypass shields, but that's not as big of a deal for an alert character on a defense team most of the time. It's mainly the fact that he's going to effectively have 100% resist in this case to taunt and confuse. If he is already taunted and is already confused, he will no longer be taunted and no longer be confused. The debuffs themselves will be on him, but he just won't be affected by those debuffs. However, the 3rd slot on his weapon can be disarmed. We have got Harrison here who can maybe hit the disarm, I'm not sure. We'll have a little look and see. And he did disarm him, as you can see. It said disarm. He got stunned, but he also obviously procced the focus again. Now, if I was to attack with other people, the focus cannot actually happen again, and they cannot get stunned. It just cannot happen. It's impossible. So that's how this weapon works in terms of giving Pete focus, and I think this is actually a pretty useful weapon for the defense team, especially that 4th slot, 3rd slot combination. So the first weapon, not too bad. We'll go on to the second weapon, which is Carrion's prepared sword. I like this weapon a lot, and it's mainly because defense team characters that are strong don't get too many options for having a windowless team, or a team that is like dangerous, or a character should I say, that's dangerous to attack, because their best third slot special is stun on attack. So generally they're open windows for attack teams, and there's no real fear of attacking those sort of characters unless they have AP on defense, for instance. There is some that have AP down, but a lot of people don't go with AP down because stun on attack is generally better, especially the healing stun that has come out as well. And this weapon is great because it gives you a lot of options on how to use it on a defense team. You only would really want to upgrade 2 of these slots. In terms of the third slot, I would definitely go for stun on attack or AP down, whichever one you want to go for on that character. Now, if it was a green shield to come out, you could just raise the defense and HP up to 40% or the HP up to 45%, because it is generally better to have a little bit more HP on a shield than defense, because they get a defense bonus when they actually defend, so you want to keep those stats as even as possible overall. Or you could go for an AP game character where you keep the defense or keep the HP, completely up to you which one you want to go for. Again, try and aim for about the same on the overall stats between the defense and the HP generally is a good way to go. And I think this would be great in the hands of, let's say, Georgia. I think Georgia having this weapon would be sick, mainly because if she can get the characters into a lock and then she actually has that elusive proc, she's not going to be able to be giving away AP. As the last character alive, I've had a lot of situations where she's been very, very problematic. I do see Ransack on some Georgias and also some Stone Walls, but as long as she can stop giving away AP, even when she's controlled, she could potentially just not have anyone rush her because of that 4th slot. And that's what elusive does. When someone has an elusive buff on them, when they're attacked, they don't give AP anymore. When they do basic attacks or any attacks, they don't give AP with those attacks, so it can be very, very problematic. So when fully upgraded, these are the sort of stats you can get. Now, I got very lucky with the upgrades after the healing stun. Those obviously could both not get crits, and I could have a very large bonus on attack and 38 HP. And the issue here is you wouldn't reset it in this situation. You got healing stun. I'm going to be honest, that took me 25 goes to get, so I'm not going to reset it at that point to try and get perfect stats there. It is very problematic if you have to do a special in the 3rd or 4th slot on a 5-star weapon if you want to get a perfect one. The same can be said for a 4-star weapon. If you want to do healing stun, for instance, on a 4-star weapon, the next 2 upgrades is a lottery. So on a defense team, it's pretty obvious. You attack the character and it can proc the elusive. I'll attack with 4 characters and you can see it proc the elusive on the first attack, but Governor still gained AP because when he attacked her, she didn't have the elusive. But the next 3 attacks, nobody got AP. The only reason they would get AP in that situation is if she had a reflect mod. They would gain between generally 1 to 3 AP, depends on their HP, and depends obviously on how hard they hit. If they hit for thousands and the reflect comes back being quite hard, they will gain a little bit more AP that way. But as you can see, we're not going to be getting natural rushes very quickly. The only character that potentially could would be Governor, and he'd have to get AP elsewhere because this elusive lasts for 2 turns. Not only that, you'll see after I attack with Ty, Georgia will basic attack somebody, and normally they would gain a bit of AP because of that attack, but we'll see what happens this way. And she stuns, obviously, the Governor, but he also is still on 40 AP like he was before, and this is because elusive works with attacks and also when being attacked. You could see the 3rd slot coming into good usage there as well. The stun happened and she has got a 15% heal for 2 turns. She's already been healed for 1 of those turns. So the weapon itself can be very, very nice in terms of self-sustain and just making it frustrating, especially in the last character alive situation. So obviously Carrion's weapon can be very nice, just like Ryan's blunderbuss. It really depends whose hands you put it in. I think Carrion's weapon can be used with basically any defensive strong character, just like the Ryan's blunderbuss that I made can be used with any alert defense team character. However, going on to Kapoor's 6-shooter, this weapon is very different. I would call it more of an offensive weapon than a defensive weapon. It is kind of intriguing, the upgrades that are on it, because realistically, if you weren't really to focus too hard on this weapon, it is one of the best weapons in the game as a 5-star weapon instantly. But when you actually look at the actual upgrades it's got, it isn't as good as it could have been. For instance, the 3rd slot, while it is a special when you're seeing the teal color, leech life is not that great. And then when you're seeing 35% stat and a huge bonus to attacking, it's like great, Generally, pain spread would be used on a bleed team, so 35% attack isn't as good as, let's say, 35% defense or HP. If that third slot was a stun, or like impair on attack or an impair on defense in that third slot, maybe even an off trait there, obviously, it would be very nice. But right now, you've got to remove the third slot, which I don't think is very good. Stunned on defense would be good there. And honestly, I would remove the attack as well, especially if you are going to use it where it mainly should be used, which would be in like a bleed team. However, you could potentially use it in a defense team as well, but again, you'd want to have defensive stats there. And this is what I got from fully upgrading it the way I talked about. Focus stun and 35% HP, and this is the issue. I wasted 3 upgrades on things that were already there in terms of the level. We already had a special in the third slot, it just wasn't a very good one. And we already had 35 stat in the first slot, and it just wasn't a really good one. You could potentially just make this an offensive weapon and put focus stun in there and go to 45% attack. Pain spread can still be useful on, like, let's say a Krista, and the 45% attack would obviously do a lot of damage. You could pain spread things like stun, impair. It really depends on the other characters that you've got on that team. If you are using Krista on a team with the likes of Erin has a impair on her rush, you could potentially spread that impair to an adjacent character. However, the problem with pain spread is if you have too many effects running, it's hard to control which effect will go from one character to another. And that's basically the biggest downside when it comes to a bleed team, is you generally have to control the character that you're trying to bleed out, and you could potentially make the control be pain spread rather than the bleed. So you could have like a 20,000 bleed on a character that would instantly take down 2. You pain spread, let's say, the 100% heal reduction for 1 turn, which is not going to be as effective as a pain spread. So here we see against a Carrion team, we are going to use Roadathon as the leader. And basically you can see that each character has 600 bleed on them currently as a negative stat. If I hit the lacerate with Jiafeng, she'll also hit 500 bleed. On top of that, it'll go to 1700. Roadathon has the weapon in his hand. It says the Dazing Duel Technize, but it is actually the pain spread weapon, as you can see. If I was to attack Carrion, it would pain spread 1700 bleed to Georgia. Even though she had the 600 bleed herself, that was the same 600 bleed that Carrion had, it would still get spread. As you can see, enemy pain spread, and then it goes up to 2,300 on Georgia. The biggest issue is here, like I said, if there was another negative stat on Carrion, it could potentially transfer that, and I'll just show you how that works. So on this defense team now, you can see there's 5 characters. I can control with a character like Dr. Stevens, who will do control to 3 characters. It hits Clementine, Georgia, and it also hits the bottom left-hand corner, Alpha. Now, if I do the pain spread to Alpha here, it could potentially transfer the impair, the taunt, or the bleed to Carrion. When we do it, it transfers what? It transfers... It didn't transfer anything, so it seems like the pain spread may have actually pain spread an effect to Georgia that she already had, which would be impair or taunt. So that's an even bigger downside than I originally realized. So potentially a pain spread can pain spread an effect that a character already has to a character that already has it, and it does nothing. So obviously the bottom left hand corner weapon is a big hit or miss weapon. It can be really effective, and then it can be non-effective at all, apparently. You could potentially have it on a defense team for that just sort of RNG element. It will allow you to maybe defend against teams that you otherwise wouldn't be able to, in terms of just being RNG. Sometimes it's going to be really effective, sometimes it's going to be useless. But just based on the other 2 options we've already had, I would probably say this is the worst of the 3 so far, just because of the fact that it could potentially just do nothing, which is not very effective at all. So now we move on to the last weapon, which is Eugene's Old Man Cane, and we are going to just check it out. 35% defense, a huge bonus to AP when taking damage, AP down when being attacked, a better chance to cause minus 50 AP to the enemy, and then the last part is reduce critical hit damage taken by 50%. Now this weapon is very debatable. You could potentially just change the AP on defense to AP on attack, and then just increase the defense to 45% and just keep it as it is. Reduction on incoming crit damage isn't actually that bad. There are a lot of characters that do hit extremely hard and you gear them potentially towards doing crits. For instance, the new Negan that has come out, because he does a multi-hit rush, it can be very beneficial to hit crits with it. I would say this is the best weapon out of the 4 in terms of actually having a stable start. But in terms of the final product potential and how unique this weapon is, I would say it's not the best at all. It's actually probably the worst, along with the blunderbuss, in terms of this is an actual very easily achievable weapon to do yourself. The only reason you'd take this weapon is if you really thought it was going to work with your team and you just wanted to save armory tokens. The other weapons have specials on them that are either not in the game, in the armory upgrades, or much harder to come by. So here is the final product in the terms of the weapon upgrades that I was talking about. A huge bonus to AP when attacking, and 45% defense. I've actually got really lucky with my perfect weapons on doing these upgrades for the test. Oh, this is, you know I'm going to get terrible upgrades when I do it myself. That's the thing. On my main regions, terrible. Test region, absolutely fine. Now this is quite nice, obviously the percentage you're going to hit. But like I said, it's not really anything super special as a weapon except the AP down. And out of AP down on stun and attack, the healing stun, I mean, most people would probably say that healing stun is the better way to go. So here's the jewel, and you can see what the weapon looks like in her hands as well. Visually, you could see what all the other weapon looks like, except you couldn't see Kapoor's weapon, because when you place a 5-star weapon into someone who already has a 5-star weapon attached to them, it still looks like their OG weapon. Can be kind of confusing to some people sometimes. When I attack with the 4 characters, you'll see them, some of them gain AP and some of them will lose AP. As you saw, Mia did gain AP from her basic attack, but then she lost the AP afterwards because the AP drain came in. That's pretty much how the AP drain is going to work. There's not going to do too much else. Crit damage is pretty basic. It will just reduce the actual crit damage by 50%, not the overall hit, the actual crit damage part of it. So let's say normally you'd hit for 10,000. If you hit a crit, you'd hit for like 15,000. Unless you had the bigger crit multipliers, you would reduce the extra damage over the top of the normal hit by 50%. Now this does not give this character any offensive bonuses when doing a basic attack. So if I attack with Ty, there's no point of control here, there's no AP drain here, there's nothing. It will all come down to mods pretty much. Ty did also get AP drain, so you could see 2 of my 5 characters now have not got a turn 3 natural rush or a turn 2 command rush. If I attack with those 2 characters again, Mia again did not get her AP, and obviously with certain characters this can be extremely frustrating. But as long as one of these characters hits theirs, I'll be able to command whoever I wanted and then obviously be able to rush. But you can see I'm already down to 2 options at this point. And if you've got characters that rely on AP gain, for instance, you want to get a turn 2 natural rush with Dr. Stevens in the team as well. If they get AP drain, there's nothing you can do about it. There's no resist. There's nothing you can do to combat AP down on a weapon except disarming it. So Eugene's Old Man Cane is pretty good. The way you can get it, you can probably get it to the highest sort of stat wise, but it is probably the easiest one to make in my opinion. Overall, along with Ryan's blunderbuss, they have the most basic upgrades. They're not the hardest ones to get. If you wanted more unique weapons, I would definitely go with Carrion's sword or Kapoor's 6-shooter, but you can see downsides on some of these weapons. It also comes down to the characters you've got, the kind of teams you want to build. Every single one of these weapons is, in my opinion, primarily a defense team weapon, except Kapoor's 6-shooter, but you could still potentially use it on defense if you wanted. It is completely up to you. But that's a look at the 4 weapons available from the crate in the Roadathon event. Do tell me your thoughts on the weapons. Which one of these 4 weapons would you like to go for if you did manage to get your hands on this crate? Me personally, it's pretty easy choice. I think it has to be Carrion's weapon. It looks sick. It has really good base defense and HP options, so you can choose which way you want to go. And the 4 slot is unique. The second something's unique, I'm just like, yes please. And it is actually pretty good. And I'm a big strong character advocate. I love strong characters a lot. Healing stun is one of my favorite upgrades for that 3rd slot, so I definitely want to make the weapon that you saw me make earlier. But do tell me your thoughts in the comments. That is the end of my video. Thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.